Welcome to the Rocky Mountain View. I'm Lee. Good to see you today. I got a couple of quick emails I'm going to read for you. It's a little bit of wind. I'm hoping that my microphone isn't picking it up too much. But if worse comes to worse, I'll try to edit that out afterwards. But in the meantime, man, when you're in the mountains and when the weather's a little warmer, and it's been a little warmer the last couple of days, you're going to get the wind. So it's just something I've had to get used to. This video, or this email, is just, it's a story that we all know happens much too often. It's about a young girl who was physically and mentally abused throughout her childhood and the mental toll it took on her, and how she began to abuse herself afterwards because she didn't believe that she was worthy of anyone's love, and how it took her almost 30 years to ask God for help. And then finally, she was able to overcome the effects of everything that she suffered. It's actually, well, here goes. Home movies show the few happy times in Kelly Carroll's childhood, but no one dared turn on a camera when their father started beating one of them. I was very fearful of his unpredictable temper, says Kelly. Kelly's father could be kind, but the slightest transgression sent him into a violent rage. There was no mother to comfort or protect the children. She left when Kelly was just 2 years old. She was gone. I don't even remember having a mother. I was just so lonely, so I tried to create my own little world in order to survive. The worst beating Kelly received was for simply arguing with her older sister. My father struck me several times with his belt, Kelly recalls, and I started screaming for him to please stop. And that's when he threw me up against the wall and hit me. I don't know if it was his fist or backhand, but it gave me a black eye. I had welts all over my back and all over the backs of my legs, and bruises on my arms. The neighbors heard the screams and did nothing. We were taught never to tell anyone what was happening. If we told someone, we'd be beat again. It just destroyed my self-esteem, and I was very detached. I never felt accepted by anyone after that. Isn't that unbelievable? I'm sorry, folks, but when I hear stuff like that, I start to get mad. Like right now, I got bear spray in case a grizzly come up, but quite honestly, I pity the grizzly that tried to attack me at the present moment. When Kelly was 12, her father remarried. Kelly says the first year was calm, then everything changed. We soon realized he didn't want us around and that she didn't love us. She didn't really want anything to do with us. We were just in her way. That's when 13-year-old Kelly begged her father to find her birth mother, who had since remarried. When we did find her, I talked to her on the phone, and that's when she flew me out to New York City. Then Kelly's mother asked her to stay permanently. She was good to me. I started doing very well in school. I made wonderful friends, until her stepfather molested her. Kelly told her mother, and her mother made her pack her bags and put her on a jet and sent her back home to her father. He picked me up at the airport and didn't have much to say, except that he was going to take me to a place called the Attention Home, until the state figured out what to do with me. Unbelievable. He said that his wife, my stepmother, would divorce him if I came back home, so he just threw me away. I felt like a puppy dropped off at the pound. It was horrible. The broken-hearted 7th grader made a decision she would live by her own rules. I was just rebellious. I didn't want anyone telling me how to live. I started drinking and smoking marijuana and partying, and it was just to cover a lot of pain. Kelly was shuffled around the foster care system until she aged out. At 17, she dropped out of school. Then she became pregnant and married the father of her child. It was a very empty and very lonely after the baby was born. I remember feeling just worn out and tired. She remembered that one of the few places she found comfort as a child was at church, so she decided to try it again. I turned to the Lord and really had a genuine touch from Him. I remember going to the altar and falling on my face and just bawling and crying and the tears. But her fledgling relationship with God was derailed by the same thing that ruined everything else in her life. I couldn't believe that He would love me, because no one ever really showed that they loved me before. 20 years pass. Kelly had 2 failed marriages and 2 children to raise on her own. She became so despondent that she tried to take her own life. I remember crying out, "God, forgive me. I can't go on like this anymore." And the minute I asked God to forgive me, I heard Him say to me, "I'm not done with you yet." And the next thing I remember is waking up with the paramedics. The Lord saved me. She says the journey back to faith in Christ was hard. She struggled to give up alcohol and drugs. One night I was lying in bed and had my Bible open, and I had fallen asleep with it on my chest. I don't know if I was dreaming, but I woke up and I heard a voice, and it was so loud that the dogs sat up and they jumped off the bed. All I heard was, "Do you want rest?" And I started crying, and I knew it was God. I thought, how could you show up again in my life like this? Then I knew He loved me. For the following year, Kelly prayed and fasted for a breakthrough in her life. That's when she said God told her that she needed to forgive those who had hurt her. Her father was first on the list. I actually had the courage and faith to confront him and ask him why. And he couldn't answer, only through tears. And he told me that he always loved me, and I even had to ask him to forgive me for my bitterness. He hugged me and granted me forgiveness. So that broken, abandoned little blonde girl is now a mature woman of God. She's fun-loving, feisty, and full of life. Her children have seen the difference. Kelly's daughter says, "Mom's beautiful. Something has just lifted off her shoulders." Her son agrees, and it has truly changed her life in every way. Kelly is also a new wife to Doug and has the marriage she always dreamed about. And she's also written a book too entitled Full on Empty. I'm going to have to remember that and read it. About the breakthroughs that came through prayer and fasting. She's now devoted her life to serving the God who saved her. He's the lover of my soul. He's the only one that cares about me, truly cares about me, from the inside all the way to my outside. He's never going to leave me. I love Psalm 27:10 when it says, "Even though your father or mother forsake you, I will receive you." Unbelievable. Can you imagine being a 12-year-old girl in grade 7, being dropped off by your father at a state house and being told that you're no longer wanted? You know, as someone who grew up with terrific parents, brothers and sisters, and so much love in our family, I got to be honest with you, I didn't really know that people grew up in families and had these issues. It just was something that was never presented to me. Something maybe in the 60s or 50s we didn't talk about. And it makes me feel terrible now knowing that most of the kids that I went to school with that were acting out, that were getting in trouble, that got into drugs and alcohol, were likely just like this young lady. They were just crying out for help. I just think it's so wonderful for Kelly to have found her way back, to realize that she's worthy of love, and to be able to share her experiences with everybody. What an amazing story. Well, I'm just loading up this next one. This next story I really found very uplifting. It's about a man who died and met Jesus. Jim Anderson was dying from a massive heart attack. I felt like I was fading away. The next thing I knew, off in the distance I saw a white light. The only signs of trouble had been a year earlier, but Jim's doctor had called his symptoms stress-related. Jim had been working 12-hour days as a supervisor at a wastewater treatment plant. But this time, Jim knew that it was much more than stress. I was resting in my bedroom, and all of a sudden I had a crushing pain in my chest, and the pain radiated down my arm and up the side of my neck. I couldn't catch my breath, and I called out to my daughter and said, "You're going to have to get me to the hospital. I'm not going to make it." A balloon catheter was inserted into his artery. He was stabilized and placed on a heart transplant list. But 2 days later, Jim flatlined. Jim remembers, "I could see everyone rushing into the room, but I couldn't hear the alarms going off. It's like I had gone underwater. The hearing had just faded away. That's when I began to pray because I knew I was dying." It wasn't scared praying, it was earnest praying. As I prayed, it got darker to the point where it went black. Jim said the next thing I knew, off in the distance, I saw a white light. It was beautiful. It wasn't blinding, but pure and perfect. As I started to go towards the light, I could see the outer edge of it begin to spiral, and I couldn't figure out what was there. But as I got closer, I could see that it was the words of prayer revolving. The words then broke off going into the light, and I followed them into the light. The next thing I felt was being embraced, safe and secure. It felt wonderful. It felt like total love. The next thing I knew, I was looking down at the room where my body was. I could see everyone working on me. I could hear what they were saying. There were 2 nurses outside of the room looking in. One said to the other, "What are they working so hard for? He's gone. If they do bring him back, he'll just be a vegetable." I later on told her what she said, and she just about passed out. That's awesome. Then Jim thought to himself, "Where's Debbie?" Then instantly he was in the room where she was. Jim's wife, Debbie, recalled, "I had just gotten finished with that prayer. You know, he's yours, Lord, because I knew that the only way he was coming back to us was if God wanted him to." Jim remembered, when she did that, I zoomed in right on her face. And when I saw her face, I saw every aspect of our life together. From the first day we met, our marriage, the birth of our children, all the emotions we've shared. I couldn't leave her. I just couldn't leave her. I cried out to the Lord and said, "Lord, I love you so much, but please let me go back." I said, "My wife needs me, my children need me. Please let me go back." The doctors and nurses didn't give up. They shocked Jim so many times that the flesh in his chest was burned. Then the doctors heard a heartbeat. "I came back to a world of pain," Jim said. "They shocked me so many times, it's like coming back out of the water. My hearing came back. I could hear them telling me, 'I can't believe he's back, he's back.' They said, 'Can you hear me?' And I took that first breath on my own. Have you ever tasted honeysuckle? That's exactly what that first breath tasted like. It was so sweet, so wonderful, and I just thanked the Lord." Jim was alive, but his heart still wasn't functioning properly. They put him on a medical coma, to allow his body to heal. So I wasn't able to talk to him for 7 days, Debbie said. Jim spent the next 17 days in intensive care. He flatlined several more times, and each time Jesus asked him a question. The subsequent times that I arrested and go towards the light, he would ask, "Are you sure this is what you want?" And each time I would ask to come back, Jim said. Jim woke up from his medical-induced coma. His heart increased in function from 5% to 30%. He no longer needed a heart transplant. It was a long process, but basically it was good to hear his voice again, Debbie said. His doctor implanted a pacemaker in his chest. Just a couple days later, Jim was able to make it home in time for his daughter's graduation. One doctor told Jim he only had a year to live. That was over 7 years ago. It's brought us so much closer together, so much closer together. We talk about things now, and it's whatever needs to be done for the day, it's done. You know, we don't focus on things that are trivial, Debbie said. Jim knows that every day he has with his family is a blessing from Jesus. I try to witness at least one person a day, to let them know this isn't about me, it's about their life, and to let them know that he is there for them and he loves them. What a terrific story. You know, there's, like I said before, there's so many stories of where doctors have told someone that, you know, it's you're going to die. You've only got, like in this case, you only got 1 year to live. And then here's a man writing that has been alive for 7 years. Well, I love reading stories like that. I mean, he had faith before he had his heart attack, but it sure was bolstered, I'm sure, by meeting Jesus and by everything that's happened since then. Well, got my bear spray ready. Didn't hear nothing, didn't see nothing. I know they're out and about. We've had a few warnings. But have a wonderful day, and may God continue to bless you and yours. Thank you very much. Bye now.